So everything that we talked about so far today, 90 minutes, was all review. And then we've gone super deep into effective practice. And you guys can all plan practice sessions. You've done it pre me pressing record. So now what we want to do is we want to loop all the way back round, bring this round, everything we've learned, to the mental game, and help you understand how important performance practice is. So I'm going to share my screen because I want to share this. Okay, so optimal activation is what we're searching for. So they use the word arousal here. You can say arousal, you could say activation. It really doesn't matter. They're kind of interchangeable. And then we can see on this axis, there's performance. Now, when most golfers go to practice, they create a safe environment where they're trying to build that thing that doesn't exist, muscle memory, and they're trying to do it in an ineffective way, hitting ball after ball after ball. It's very safe. It's very easy. There's no adaptation taking place. There's no space between each shot. There's no variability in task. When we are in this very safe, clean, almost plastic environment, our activation or arousal tends to be low. And therefore, if we do not get activated, if we do not get aroused in practice, that has an impact on performance. Performance is low. So if we can add some games, some challenges, some scoring systems, if we can inject spacing, variability, challenge into the way we practice, if you take 1 or 2 or 3 of those games that I shared with you, that I designed for the LPGA Tour player, if you can take those, already straight away, you are in an environment that pushes up your activation. Therefore, it pushes up your performance. Nerves, anxiety, excitement, happiness, worry, they're all a form of energy. They're all a form of activation. So if we can start to stimulate those in practice, we will be more prepared for those feelings in tournament play. Now, what we want to achieve in practice is we want to create an environment that gets us so aroused that actually we go past our optimal and we start to get so stressed that performance decreases. Okay, so we can see now my activation or my arousal is increasing up this bottom line where my cursor is. My performance is decreasing along with that. Now, why do we want to achieve this in practice? Simple. If we can create an environment that stresses us out in practice, we've been there all day. So for example, a game that I call the closeout, we have to make 3 birdies from the forward tees. Once we've made 3 birdies from the forward tees, we come to the tips and we have to shoot level par. So we play 17 holes. We finally make our 3rd birdie. We go to the tips. We par the 18th. We then play the 1st. We par the 1st. We then play the 2nd. We miss the green with our approach shot. We hit our chip to 8 feet. If we do not hold that 8-footer we lose all our birdies and we have to either continue or come back and play the same game tomorrow. In that moment, we are activated. We are faced with an 8-foot putt that is likely putting us down here. If we can learn to deal with that in practice, if we can learn to what they would call inoculate the stress response, then we are ready for tournament play. So we have to create a training environment that gets us aroused, it gets us activated. We need to face failure. We need to be recreating and simulating situations that will stress us out on the golf course. So we start to go down here, we start to get stressed, we let nerves turn into anxiety and we fail. So then when we're in tournaments, we have mental representations. And if you look at my cursor, it's going back. We have mental representations of either failing in practice, and we know the errors we made. We didn't take that extra deep breath. We didn't relax. We didn't focus on the process. Or we have mental reps in practice of we make that 8-foot putt and we fist pump in practice. And when we have those representations in our mind, we are equipped to be here in tournament play. All too often, golfers are here in practice and then they're here in tournament play, and that's it. Okay? We want you guys to be different. And as a team, we've talked about the mental game and process focus. We've talked about how to effectively create practice environments, training to learn and training to perform. This is the psychological impact that an effective environment will have on you. It will teach you to control your activation level, be at optimal levels, give you mental representations of inoculating the stress response, being at optimal levels, and it will prepare you for tournament play. Okay, so the question you have to ask yourself is, are you a high activation player? Patrick Reed, Rory McIlroy in the Ryder Cup would be a prime example of that. High activation, high performance. Or are you a low activation player? Jason Duffner. When Jason Duffner's activation is low, his performance is here. So this optimal point is going to be different for everyone. If this was 100, if we measured this point and gave it a number, on a scale of 0 to 100, someone like Jason Duffner might be 10. Someone like Patrick Reed might be 65, 70. But what you can bet is, you know, that when Tiger Woods, probably quite a high activation player, Justin Thomas, quite a high activation player, when they're in contention, they're doing everything they can with their mind, with their body language, with their breathing, with their self-talk. They're doing everything they can with their process and their pre-shot routine to not allow them to go down this curve, to keep pulling themselves back and keep them here. Those guys have vast experience of doing that. You don't. So you need to create practice environments that give you the opportunity to, number one, learn what your optimal arousal is. And number two, train yourself to implement the correct processes, correct body language, correct breathing, correct self-talk to get yourself back to this point. So let's look at that. I dumped a ton of information on you there. Let's look at body language, breathing, and self-talk. Breathing is self-explanatory. Taking that breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, diaphragmic breathing to slow ourselves down. If we take oxygen into the diaphragm, and I think we mentioned this before, we take oxygen into the diaphragm, we relax, that gets it to the chimp. So if we breathe into our diaphragm, it calms the chimp. It chills the chimp out. if we walk with our shoulders back and our chin up, like Ian Poulter, we mentioned this before, very hard to think negatively. So breathing calms the chimp. Body language has a direct impact on our thought processes. And then self-talk. How do you talk to yourself? The most important conversations you're going to have on the golf course and in life are the ones you have with yourself. If that self-talk is trash, if that self-talk is negative, if you are finding yourself on that spiral where you're getting angry, you suck. You suck. I can't believe you three-putted the last. You suck. Now your outcome focus starts coming. Change the voice. Think about this. When you talk to yourself, whose voice do you hear? Probably your own. Of all the people in the world, who do you think is right most of the time? Yourself. So when you hear your own voice telling you you're trash, you're going to believe it. So if it gets to this point where you're spiraling down this curve, instead of talking to yourself in your voice, talk to yourself in Donald Duck's voice. Guarantee that's going to change your state. It's going to bring you back up here. You'll start laughing. Okay? This is now all psychology. This is cognitive psychology. But we cannot master activation control, and we cannot master our psychology if we aren't placing ourselves in these positions in practice. If the only time you get to practice doing this stuff is in tournaments, you're not setting yourself up for success, because you're going to make the mistakes in tournaments. You're not going to be ready. You're not going to have, as we talked about, you're not going to have trained to perform. Okay? So that's the first sort of way that we're going to close this circle. We're linking everything back now. Because if you have the ability to manage your breathing, manage your body language, manage your self-talk in times of stress, when you're going down here, then you have the ability to now focus on the process. All of those processes that we talked about, OSVEA, going through your OSPHERE routine, analyzing the shot, turning the analysis of the shot into something more sensory, silencing the chimp, grading the process. All of those things we talked about, you cannot do if you are here on the bell curve. It is game over. And I'm going to prove that to you by showing you a video. The language in this video is so bad that I'm going to play it with no sound. But this guy's trying to learn to play the guitar. You can watch this after in your own time. Please don't play it with much volume, because your parents will be like, who told you to listen to that? It's the worst swearing outburst I've ever heard in my life. But even let's just watch his body language. Just watch his body language and his facial expressions. How high is his activation? And does he have any chance of ever mastering this song while his activation is where it is? So I'm going to send you guys the link to that. It's pretty hilarious, but I can't be accountable for the swearing, unfortunately. Okay, so ultimately, he literally, when you watch that video, or you can type in "world's angriest guitar man" on YouTube and watch it, and you'll see his activation is so high here that his performance, he's got no chance of ever mastering that song. Okay, performance is going to be low. Now, if he implemented some breathing exercises, if he implemented some self-talk, different self-talk, or if he implemented a change in his body language, he would have more chance of coming up to here. Also, perhaps if he played some rock music in the background and asked his friend to try and put him off, or if he went specifically to the parts of the song where he was making the error and he had to play for at least 20 seconds, go through the error, push through the error, that might be a better way of him practicing, because now he's practicing with a little bit of chaos around him. Okay, so again, he's practicing in a very safe environment. So he's not prepared to deal with the stress. I think if he put rock music on, if he had people sort of put him off, maybe throw things at him, paper or whatever it might be, while he plays, that's going to be a bit chaotic and he's going to have to deal with the stress, but he's practicing in such a perfect environment that he's never, ever going to learn to deal with that stress. Does that make sense to everybody?
Can I ask a question?
So that is activation. Does anyone have any questions regarding activation? Do we all understand the reasons for that, etc.? Speak now or forever hold your peace. It should be pulling together nicely everything that we've talked about. The second word was metacognition. Okay. How are you ever going to control your body language, breathing, and self-talk? How are you ever going to control your activation if you are not aware of your own thoughts? So actually, the lectures that I do go this way. We finish with this. My coaching, if you came to a coaching clinic, starts with this. So metacognition is a very sort of fancy term for being aware of one's own thoughts, thinking about our own thinking, understanding our own thought processes. If you are a successful human being, the likely is you have high metacognitive processes. There was a book written by a gentleman called Paul Tough. I think it was Paul Tough. And he said that successful children have high metacognitive processes. They develop awareness of their own thoughts earlier than children who maybe develop later along the line, who become successful later on. And people who don't understand their own thoughts probably have limited chances of being successful. So, metacognition, understanding one's own thoughts. To do that, we should track our own thoughts. So ultimately, if you are in control of your thoughts, you will be in control of your activation level. If you are in control of your activation level, you will be able to implement the processes that we've talked about, pre-shot routine and in between shots. If you're implementing processes and focusing on those processes, valuing the processes more than the outcome, ultimately that gives you more chance of being a happy, relaxed golfer. If you are enjoying being out there and you are relaxed, you have a higher chance of performing. So a task for everyone. You can use this sheet. You can create your own. But when you are on the golf course, you are to take a red pen and a green pen. And if you have a positive thought, you fill a box in green. If you have a negative thought, you fill a box in red. You also can have a pen and you can put the letter P for process or O for outcome. Now, when you go and play golf, how many red versus how many green? Positive versus negative. How many process versus how many outcome? P versus O. We would want our sheet to be heavily weighted in green and P's. Most junior golfers that I work with, it's weighted in red and O's. And that's nothing against anyone that I've ever coached. That just proves you're a natural, functional human being. That's how we're built. We're built to be negative because we've got to be aware of dangers. And we're built, society around us, our own wiring, it attracts us to that outcome, which is unfortunately what we can't control. So to be a successful golfer, we have to fight against everything that we're wired to do. And that begins with self-awareness. That begins with training our metacognitive processes. So we've come all the way back round. We started with psychology, what, how, why, goal setting. We continued with psychology, T plus F equals I, thoughts plus feelings equaling intention, and the pre-shot routine. Now we've gone all the way, then we went all the way, to create an effective training environment. Because if you create an effective training environment with spacing, variability, and challenge, training to learn and training to perform, you are now going to be able, in practice, to work on your activation, optimal activation control and activational awareness, and you're going to be able to work on your metacognitive processes. Okay? So that is basically it from me. Does anyone have any questions at all?
I have a question. Can you hear me, Ian? Hello?
We good? Okay. If we are good, does anyone need anything additional?
Ian, can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you guys?
Oh, sorry, my sound
my
sound wasn't working. I think I turned it down for the video and didn't turn it back up.
Okay, can you hear me now? Ian?
Yeah, were you speaking, Tom?
Yeah, I was.
I thought you were. I wondered why I couldn't hear you. Right, I can hear you now. Sorry about that.
That's why I disconnected. That's fine. I got kind of lost on what activation means. It just seems to be a little complicated.
It's actually anything that activates you. So it's very simple. So nerves create a certain energy, right? They will activate you. Happiness creates a certain energy that will activate you. Excitement creates a certain energy that will activate you. Anxiety will activate you. Hot weather versus cold weather can activate you. Jumping jacks can activate you. When you're a boxer and you get punched in the face, that can activate you. When you're a golfer and you make a 12, that can activate you. And when you're a golfer and you make a hole-in-one, that can activate you. Or it's like, you've always got to be controlling your activation. So
energy.
Yeah, energy. All the emotions that we feel, put them in a pot, stir them up. That is activation.
Okay. Yeah, so it's basically energy. It can be negative or positive, but it's basically
Absolutely.
vertically.
And positive can have a negative impact on our score. That's critical because we can make a hole in one and we go crazy. And we get on the next tee and we still charged from the hole in one. Do you see that? You can then miss steps in your routine if you don't have the metacognitive processes to be like, oh my God, my brain's all over the place from that hole in one. So even though it was a positive event, it can have a negative impact on the next shot. Anyone else?
I also have a question.
Yes.
Is it possible that your optimal point is like, it's not a certain spot, that it can be like everywhere? Because I feel like, because I performed well when I had high activation and also the low activation.
Good question. I guess it might be situational specific as well. I think going down the stretch with a 2-shot lead in a major, it's likely that you're going to have to try and sort of really feel low and really bring it back. And I feel like if you're 3 over through 2, you're going to have to really sort of pump yourself up and fire yourself up.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, situational specific as well as what you said. But yes, it's a great point, and I can't answer it 100% accurately. I think you would have to invest some time trying to answer that for yourself, trying to work out what's best for you. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, my computer's just about to run out of battery. I'm just going to put it on charge. Does anyone else have any questions? If you don't have any questions, does anyone need anything from me? Are there any resources that maybe haven't been provided from the lectures, or information from the lecture that then you don't have the ability to apply? Anything else that you guys want? No? Does everyone have my email?
Yep.
Okay. So if ever you guys need to get in touch, just reach out. I'll be more than happy to help you. And then you can also message me on Game L Training on Instagram or anything like that. But anything you need, please give me a shout. And I think I'm going to speak about doing some more work maybe next year. So that will be interesting. If it's with you guys, I'm going to have to start thinking of new content to produce. We can't go through the same things again. All right. Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot for listening, and a best of luck on your golfing journey and your life journey.
Thank you, Ian.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much. It was
Thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Thank you, Ian.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.